Hello and welcome to NativShark Podcast. I'm your host, Caleb, brought to you as always with Nico. And we are sponsored by the NativShark platform, of course. We didn't talk last week. We weren't here. Nico's little child had some sad days and had to
Yeah.
miss that one. But we're here this week. But also we won't be here next week. Oh, unlucky. Because it's today's birthday. So happy birthday day.
Yeah.
But yes, we're here now today, and we got a couple topics we want to talk about. The most important of which is Shokupan.
We need
What is
a picture
Shokupan?
of
We do need
Shokupan
Shokupan. Okay, hold on.
in the thing
I
so people
can
can see.
I can make it happen while you're talking about it.
It's a block of fluffy white bread. And like a lot of breads in Japan, it is soft and fluffy. And I like it, but I prefer toast, right? I really like to eat toast. And there's not a lot of good breads you can buy in Japan for toast. Shokupan just like it's got so much butter in it already that once you toast it, it stays crispy for like 30 seconds.
That's a fair
And then
point.
you're done.
That's a fair point. Oh wait, I actually think that Shokupan makes delicious toast. What are you saying?
It does. You just have to eat it right away.
Oh, okay. Okay, here's an
But
image
I like my
search.
toast
Here
to
we
be
go to
like
put it on our
nice
faces.
and
All right, here you go.
toasty.
Here's a visual
Actually
for
toasted.
Shokupan. I think it's really good.
Yeah. No, I don't dislike it. Like it's
Yeah.
good.
There's like buttery and less buttery variants. You can get like less
I'm
buttery
quiet, they
variants.
say.
Oh, you're quiet. All right, let me turn you up again. Bring your microphone a little bit closer.
Shokupan is toast.
Shokupan is toast. Send some up to Washington. You can get Shokupan in at Owajimaya in Bellevue or Seattle.
Yeah.
They make it.
And
There's
you
a
can't
bakery.
escape Shokupan if you live in Japan because it's the bread.
Yes. Okay, on this matter of toast and Shokupan, what do you like to put anything on it when you toast it? Or you just eat your toast raw?
No, I'd put something on it, like I guess butter, or some people will hate me for it, but Vegemite because I grew up eating it and I like it.
Well, you are from that part of the world as in your parents.
Yeah.
So it's totally you get a pass. You get a
Yeah, I've been
pass.
training my son to like Vegemite also.
Yeah.
And he also likes natto because Ray gives it to him. So he's just gonna like all of the foods that the foreigners hate from all the
Yes.
countries.
Okay,
And we'll
the
give him
fact
like
that
blue cheese and
he eats
stuff like that as
natto,
well.
it's his favorite is kind of amazing, and you've done well.
His favorite food is tomatoes.
Oh, even better. Celtalk says Vegemite is the best. He's also from
It is.
Australia. Nico's
Right, well then
somewhat from
we are homies.
Nico's somewhat from New Zealand. Celtalk, so that's why he said
Yeah, my dad's from New Zealand, so
yeah.
I ate a lot of Vegemite as a child.
Yeah. You are a New Zealand citizen though, so I mean we can say that you're
Yeah,
a New
I have
Zealander.
a I have a passport. I entered Japan on my New
New
Zealand
Zealand
passport, and
passport.
it was a nightmare for a day.
Oh no.
I wrote about it in a phase 2 lesson.
Oh really?
Uh,
A one that's not released yet?
no, it's released. It's the one on Kosekitohon, which is like your family registry.
Oh.
Specifically, it's the family registry of a Japanese person. Because
Mm.
yeah. Anyway, I was in
Yeah.
it. Like I'm in the registry because we got married, and like you have to be in it to get a visa. But I was in it as an American citizen because
Oh
I was in
yeah.
Japan on my American passport when we got married in Sapporo in 2015. And then I had never used my New Zealand passport. So we're coming here like a year ago. And I thought, hey, this is cool. I'm going to use my New Zealand passport to enter Japan. And then we were just planning to stay for about a month, like 3 weeks. And then
Yeah.
we ended up here instead.
Yeah, you
So
moved here. That was something else.
I had to apply to switch my tourist visa to a spouse visa. And then they're like, it says on your Sekitohon that you're American, but this passport says you're New Zealander, so we can't sponsor a spouse visa like this. So we had to go to a court in somewhere over like in central Tokyo. We had to go to this court,
Mm-hmm.
like where they do court stuff. And we had to apply to add my other passport to the Koseki Tohon, and then I had to go to immigration like 3 times, which is the most fun place in Tokyo by far.
Oh Lord,
They was
immigration.
just so annoyed at me for not entering Japan on my American passport because we wouldn't have had to do
Yeah, I didn't have
any
to
of
do
it.
any of that. Oh my Lord.
But now I have both my citizenships on our Japanese family registry, so I could use either passport when I come next time to get a spouse visa, whenever that
That
may be.
that's a plus. You could also just not leave, and then you're fine.
Not leave.
I
Oh, gotta go somewhere
I mean,
every 2 years.
not let your visa lapse this time. It's like the third time it's lapsed, right?
Something like that. Yeah, I've gotten a spouse visa like 3 times now, I think.
Yeah. Did you just keep getting 1 year ones because of that?
Yeah, because the first one's always 1 year, so they always give me a 1 year
Yeah.
one.
I'm on my second one, so I'm on a 3 year now.
Yeah, and then they'll give you 5, and then you can apply for your permanent resident one,
Yep.
and you'll be good.
That's the intention.
I think you could even apply for one at the end of this, but it sounds like it's not as commonly done. But since you're married, you should be able to apply for one, I think.
Yeah.
Because if you're not married to a Japanese citizen, you can apply for a permanent residence card after 10 years
I thought it
on a
was
long-term
7.
visa. Maybe it changed, but it was 10 when I used to live here as a teacher. Because I taught English in 2013, and one of my students was a Chinese girl, and she had just gotten her permanent residence card. She applied for it right after she hit the 10-year mark, and she got it, and she was very happy.
Mm, I mean, it's pretty nice once you get it and you kind of just don't have to worry anymore about. I mean, not like worry, but just like you don't have to do that hassle every.
It's especially nice if you're not here on a spouse visa, because your job doesn't determine your visa.
Right, right.
Like that Chinese student of mine, she quit her job right after she got the visa
Oh,
because
she
she
didn't
was
want
her
it.
own, like she didn't need a sponsor anymore.
Right.
So she could do her own thing instead of worrying about working for this company.
Mm. Yeah. Um, I have a friend that just got a permanent visa finally. I think after being in the country for like 15 years or something, they applied and got it this time. Actually, it might have been the first time that they applied for it, but yeah, and now they don't have to worry about getting. It's that kind of like that relief. Like, oh, okay, well, the job's not really tied to it anymore, so you know.
Yeah. I think you still can't leave the country for longer than a year. You have to be here at least one day of each year.
I believe
Otherwise, you
that's
lose it.
accurate. Yeah, cause
It's the
yeah,
same as a green card in the US.
yeah, mm. Yeah. So Day doesn't have her green card anymore, huh?
I don't know actually, because if we go back to the US at some point, we could probably apply for this like returning resident visa
Mm.
and say that the reason we lapsed was because of COVID, which is
Oh
kind of
yeah,
true.
yeah,
Um,
to some extent.
so maybe
Hmm.
I hate applying for visas, so I just don't want to
Yeah.
do it ever anywhere anymore. I'll just live on tourist visas and be, be a nomad again.
Yeah, that's what you want, huh?
Yeah, but I also don't like moving to new apartments, so I have to be like kind of rich to do that. I need to own the houses in like 2 or 3 countries.
Look at this man, he's got goals.
Yeah, just because I hate applying for visas, I need to become rich.
Yeah, that's the only reason. Oh, okay. I like how we're talking about Shokupan led us down to a conversation about visas. I
Yeah,
feel
the thing
like
that bums me. Go ahead.
I feel like visa conversations when you're a foreigner in Japan are like a gravity well. Doesn't matter. The
Yeah,
conversation can start anywhere, but inevitably you will always talk about visas.
yeah. Well, everyone has their visa stories
Yeah,
if they're a
exactly.
foreigner.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy though, but then like getting a spouse visa in Japan is much less of a hassle than getting one in the US.
That is facts. Yes, absolutely. It's very nice, nice process to get a
Well, it's just nice.
spouse
You can just
visa
show
here.
up your on tourist visa and then switch it,
Mm-hmm.
which you can't do in the US. You have to apply way ahead of time, and UCSIS or whatever that branch of the government is called takes like 6 months to even.
Is it an expensive process?
No,
Cell Talks asks. Okay. I want to say that it costs between $0 and $45 for me to get a spouse visa,
yeah.
and I think that 15 of those $45 was me buying an income. So
Well,
I
I got
think,
mine without one back in the day.
yeah. Well, I had to get one.
Actually, I've never used one when I got my spouse visa.
Oh, wait a second. I didn't get one. It was Chi that got one. She needed to have one because we had just moved back to the country. Yeah, I couldn't get one actually until after I had the visa. What am I saying? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think it was like $30, if even that, something like that. It was like just like there was some processing fee at some point along the way. But Chase
Yeah,
is
I
not a
think
saying, which might be true. Maybe it was not a saying. Even
actually
even
it's
still,
all
it's under Ichiman.
because we've done it so many times.
Yeah, it is under Ichiman. Um,
Um,
you had to like we had to build like this whole case, like a bunch of not files, a bunch of like paperwork and pictures, and like write a story to say like how we met and like how we knew each other, and show that we had history. That was like the most time consuming part of the whole thing. The other time consuming thing was just going to the immigration office. But other than that, it was we had to show that we were a legitimate couple, I guess, and not just married for the visa. You
mhm.
know, did you have to do that at all? Did you have when you like?
We did it for sure when we went to the US. I
But
don't remember going in Japan, but we got married
I
in
was gonna say
Japan.
you got married in Japan though, so maybe that's why, huh? Huh? In the U.S. though, did you have to like take pictures and show the history of how long you'd been together, et cetera, et cetera?
We did so many things. She had to get like, vaccinations and go to like a special doctor. We had to do a lot of things. She had an interview at the embassy before she even got the visa, and they like quizzed her on questions and
Wow.
allowed to be around her because they're probably asking if I'm a terrible person or something. I don't know.
Y-
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I saw that Celtalk says 10K for a visa, and that's
In Australia,
sounds like lawyers are involved to me.
a partner visa is for non-married couples, so that's probably different. Yeah, that sounds more challenging.
Oh, yeah,
When you're in a
and that's
non-legally binding arrangement with somebody and you're trying to get a visa, I can totally understand that being expensive.
yeah. If you want to come to Japan and get a visa and you don't want to work for a company and you don't want to pay for a school that'll sponsor your visa and you're not married to someone, it's going to be expensive
Then it would be
because
expensive, yeah.
you're pretty much left with the business visa only, which means you have to have the money for the business and or the investor one still is like you have to have all that money, you have to hire a lawyer, you have to do a bunch of stuff, but
If
it's
if you're
should
coming to Fukuoka specifically though, they have a startup visa here and it's like you still have to have money, but it's less. Instead of 35K, which is for the business or investor visa, you have to have 20K. And you have to submit what your startup plan is and how it will impact the Fukuoka area. It could literally just be like, I'm going to open a ryokan, and here's the people that I'm going to talk to, and that's about it. But you do have to have 20K. But you don't have to spend it. You just have to have it. You have to show that you have that amount of money. And then I want to say for the legal fees of like a lawyer arranging this for you, it's about around $5,000. So total, it's like 25,000, 20 in your bank, and five for the fees, and you could get a startup visa. And it gives you 1 year, and then at the end of that 1 year, you have to basically show what your business has done, or if you have to like do certain things, and then it gets extended.
so you actually have to start a business, which is a bummer. If you have money and or like if you work online, you just want to like hang out in Japan for a few years, then your options are pretty limited.
That is true, unfortunately. And I hope that that changes over time. It's kind of
Yeah.
like one of my side goals is to try to figure out a way to like make Fukuoka a place that is like easier for people like that to come. There's
You
like
want to start a movement?
yeah, I have ideas. I don't know how much I want to get into them, but I have ideas for how to make it possible. But anyway, the goal, the dream is that there's a place like that you can come in Fukuoka and easily get a like a 1 year visa to stay in Japan and make money online, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone should just be like Georgia, the country in Eastern Europe, and just give out 365-day tourist visas on arrival.
Yeah, it'd be kind of
But
nice.
it's always 90 days or less, unless you're like a U.S. citizen going to Mexico or something. Then it's like
Okay, to be
100.
fair, if you're under the age of 30 and you're from countries that are not the United States,
Yeah,
coming into
yeah, they
Japan, you
have.
can come for up to 1.5 years.
Yeah, so
If
if the
yeah,
U.S. would just be cool and start offering working holiday visas to other countries, then
yeah.
yeah, all those citizens could just get a working holiday visa.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see the U.S. doing that anytime soon.
Me either. So just be from Canada or Australia or the UK or anywhere in Europe, pretty much, and you'll be fine. What are we talking about? That already exists. But you have to be under 30, which is a bit of a bummer because a lot of people aren't under 30. And like,
Yeah.
what if you're? I mean, what if you're 32? Okay, cool. That you're not important anymore. What is this all about? Like,
Why you just got to get rich and just do
oh,
tourist visa hopping every 90 days, like I was saying. Own your
oh,
houses in 3 countries and just do that.
gotcha. I'm sure that will work out completely fine.
Yeah. I'm sure it would if you just got the get rich part figured out first.
I'll be 30 by the time international travel is a thing again. Damn. Well, as long
You
as
could
you're not
probably apply that.
31, you could apply now if you're under 30.
Yeah, I think you can go until you're 31. So it's like
Yeah.
as long as you step in the country on the last day of when you're 30, then I think you're
Yep.
good.
Not only that, but if you apply before you're 30 and then it can take up to like 6 months to process the whole thing. Usually it's way quicker than that, but you can have up to 6 month leeway on when you applied to when you get your boarding entry, whatever it's called, entry permit. So if you actually want to go, you should apply like now and let the process run.
Yeah, way back in like 2014, 2015, Ray and I always looked at countries with working holiday visas that we'd want to go to because she could do it because she's
Yeah,
Japanese and
well, you could.
a New Zealand
Yeah, I was
citizen.
gonna say
But
you
the
could do it.
problem was you always have to apply from your home country.
That's correct.
So we would have to go to Japan, apply, go to New Zealand, apply, and then go to the country we want to go to. So it would end up costing us so much money that we never got to do it.
Okay, I see. That doesn't sound too bad though, actually. But now it's. Oh, thanks for following, Super Jaren. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're chatting about
Yeah.
visas and international travel. I forgot to update our thing,
Anyway,
but
the last thing I want to say about Shokupan is there's like air in the middle of a piece of Shokupan. It's like you have this bread and like it's just empty in the middle is how it feels. There's just air.
that's accurate.
And I think that's why it's not a great toast bread because when you go to smear
I
something
just
on it,
straight disagree with you about it not being a great
completely
toast bread.
nothing.
You're buying the wrong Shokupan, my guy.
No, I've bought all of them. I've
All of
used all the
them, every single one of them. I know what you mean. Like it is airy, but I just think it's delicious toast. I think it's fantastic.
yeah, it's tasty bread because they have a ton
The
of butter
butter
in
in
it.
it, yeah. You could be hating on Shokupan, but the crunch and the mochi mochi contrast is what makes it so good.
Yeah, I'm not hating on Shokupan. I
Okay.
like it.
Okay.
I am sad that there's no alternative for when I want toast.
Gotcha. Okay, that's fair. You just gotta live near a bakery like we do, because then you can get all kinds of
We
breads.
do.
What?
And we have lots of breads. I just want like a sandwich bread that's not fuwa fuwa.
You can buy like a French
Yeah,
baguette,
they have the French ones,
and then you
the
just cut it
baguettes.
this way, cut
They
in
have the
half.
ones they call English bread too, which is like kind of chewy.
Yeah. There's like straight like I was at the Seven the other day, and I found straight up like multi-grain bread, like what you would see in like a supermarket in the U.S. I was like,
Yeah.
I've never seen this before, but there it was. So I don't know. I agree that like it can be difficult to find depending on where you are. I'm gonna say this: I actually have a harder time finding things in Tokyo than I do in Fukuoka. Like I feel like in Tokyo it was difficult to find certain foods or something like that, or like you'd have to like travel really far for it. But here it's like I feel like I can find everything. Everyone's like you can't find X in Japan. I can think of like three places that I know that are close that have it in this city. But living in Tokyo, I did not have that experience, and I wouldn't know where to get good bread in Tokyo.
Yeah. That's because you live near the center of Fukuoka. If you live near the center of Tokyo, there's
Ah,
it's close.
got the brains there. That's right.
Yeah.
I
The,
live
the
literally in the
internet
center.
the international stuff, gravitates toward the center.
Good point. It's a
The
good
further you
point.
get from the center of a city, the more it's just Japanese stuff.
It's a really good point. Yeah, so like if you live near Tenjin or Hakata, that's probably the experience.
Yeah, there's not very much that you'll not be able to find.
Hmm. Fukuoka is small, so it makes it a lot easier. That's true too. So like even if you do live on the outskirts, in like under 20 minutes, around 20 minutes maybe, you could bike if you wanted to the place like that. You'd be in the center of everything, or you could take the train. Whereas in Tokyo, it's like it takes you like 45 minutes to get to. Assuming the trains aren't packed, it's like 45 minutes.
What I really want is for all of the Mexican people listening to go to Japan and open supermarkets and restaurants, please.
Yeah, right. We need more Mexican food over here.
Yeah, there's
On
like
that note,
all the nationalities are being well represented, but I feel like we don't have enough Mexican stuff.
on that note, to my point of living in Fukuoka, I can think of three fantastic Mexican places. One is like
Yeah.
2 minutes from my house, and the other one is in the Eki, and then the third one is this truck, like that, like a food truck.
Hmm.
That's a Mexican food truck.
Yeah. The only ones I like nearby are kind of like fancy ones.
Mm,
Whereas,
that's fair,
being from San Diego, what I really
right?
want is just a taco shop down the street that I can go to every now
Yes.
and then.
The one that's down the street from my house is just a taco shop that's like cheap down the street.
Yeah. What I actually want is just like a supermarket, like a market, like a Mexican market would be cool.
How about like an international market just in general?
Yeah. They have some, and it's okay.
Like when you're in the West, you go to international market and you find all the things that are here. but but
We
here,
went to an international market, somewhere over by like Tokyo Tower a couple months
mm,
ago. And it was interesting. They had everything, first of all, but they had a bunch of interesting meats. Like
mm,
they had like crocodile meat,
oh yeah, yeah.
kangaroo.
Okay,
They had all
apparently
all the meats.
there's this website and that's a friend was telling us about called the Meat Guy in Japan, and you just straight up can order all kinds of any kind of meat basically, and it just like delivers to you. You should look it up.
I never looked into it, but my friend once
I'll
told me
link
that
it
he
to you.
went to like, some exotic meats restaurant in Tokyo and ate bear.
I've had bear before, um, because I grew up in Montana for part of my life,
Yeah,
and a lot of people in Montana enjoy hunting. And so wild game was like a big thing.
don't want to waste it if you're gonna kill it.
Exactly. I mean, like wild game in general was like a huge part of the culture of growing up in
Yeah,
Montana.
makes sense.
So like venison, so like deer and antelope,
Yeah, I've had
elk
that.
meat. What else? Uh, Bison. Have I ever eaten crocodile?
I've not.
I don't think so. I've eaten like frogs, frog legs, squirrel. Um, let's see. Those are the only like sort of I guess strange horse, but that's
Yeah,
not strange here.
horse is really common, and I
Yeah.
need to when my mom comes to visit me, I need to somehow hide it from her that like some of these restaurants are horse meat restaurants
Oh,
because she loves horses and she grew up with them.
she just don't tell her. She won't know.
Yeah, she can't read the kanji.
She can't
Luckily,
read.
I keep telling her to study on NativShark, but she's not, so I'm safe.
Yeah, my
We
dad started studying on
Yeah.
on Native
So if
Shark.
she starts studying,
It's
she'll
made some
know. I'm pretty sure we
progress.
teach that kanji in phase one,
We
so
do, yep.
because it's a pretty common element. So
Saltalk says he goes to Asian grocers to buy Japanese curry. I did that a lot when I was living in the West. Yep. We'll go to Uwajimaya in Bellevue and
Ray makes our
buy.
curry from scratch. It's awesome.
Well, Ray's cool.
Well, actually, she doesn't make it now. Her mom makes it for us,
He
which is even
nobody got
better.
time for that.
Her mom brings over huge pots of like, curry, and she'll be like, "There's 20 onions in this curry." I'm like, "Whoa!"
That's pretty cool. So 15 minutes ago, Ty told me to bump Nico up to 50 to 150. Whoops.
Oops.
All right. Well, it's been done now. No one was complaining in chat, so the neighborhoods near me seem to be more Korean Chinese than Japanese. All I've seen nearby is Daiso. Well, I don't know exactly where you are in Washington, but that is generally true, except for in I want to say in like Bellevue area. There's a decent size. Yeah, okay, under Tacoma, yeah. In the Bellevue area, there's a decent sized Japanese community. There's like two um, international schools for like if you have children that you want them to learn Japanese and English growing up. You know what I'm talking about, Nico? Where you like send your child to a
Yeah.
like if like especially it's I mean anyone can send your child there, but it's really popular if you have Japanese heritage but you're like growing up in America. So you send your kids to a school that they'll teach in Japanese. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I had some friends that I met in Tokyo that grew up in San Diego who went to one of those schools. They were
Oh.
half Japanese, but they went to a school where like used Japanese in
Mm,
America.
yeah, cool. That's what I'm talking about. So there's like two of those schools in Bellevue, and then the Uwajimaya, which is like a Japanese owned grocery store. So like in my experience in Washington, it's that area that has like the Japanese community, rather than over on the Seattle side. You run into a lot more Chinese and Korean community. Yep. Um. What else should we talk about? We're just kind of doing chilling today.
Dylan, we had some notes on things to talk about, but we ended up talking about Shokupan and visas.
Yeah, I mean those are great topics.
Actually, it kind of relates to this idea of lessons that we were talking about. Um,
Oh yeah. Let's see. I'll call
so
this
if
a
you look
thought
again,
experiment
thought experiment.
on creating lots of lessons. That's gonna be the title of this conversation.
Okay, so we want to
Yes,
build out our lesson library, of course, because
of
there's a
course.
lot of content in a language that you want to learn,
Yep.
and a lot of cultural content as well. So if we assume the four phases of NativShark has 1,460 units, which is one a day for 4 years, the average unit in phase one actually has one lesson per unit, but it's probably going to be more than that on
Mm.
average.
So it's
It's going to
closer
be
to
like
like
two.
2,000 lessons per
Yeah, it
1460
might be
units.
more like 3 or 4,000, but we can say two just to be on the low side. And we want to have extra credit content, stuff that you can do when your core studies are done that you can read about after that. And we should have more extra credit lessons than we do core lessons.
Mm.
So you figure we have, maybe 4,000 of those that we need to write. So now we're looking at 6,000 lessons for the English to or Japanese to English language direction.
No, English to Japanese.
Japanese to English.
No, wait.
But
What? You
I'm
learn?
talking about TLS. You're talking
Oh,
about the
oh, okay. Ah, my
yeah, from the
brain.
student's perspective, probably is English to Japanese, but from the content creator's perspective, we're going from Japanese to English because we
Yeah,
start with the Japanese
yeah, you're
that we
right.
wanted to
You're
use.
right. I
We go to
understand. Yeah.
explaining it in English. Um,
You got me tripped for a second.
yeah, but we don't want to take, a decade to get all these lessons out. So, and our internal content team probably can pump out those core lessons pretty quickly once these workflows that we're building right now are finished, because there's about, I would say, 15 steps to from starting to plan a unit to the unit is published in front of a student.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say we have, at this moment that we're talking right now, I'd say about a third of those steps are now systematized and just happening on the clock, like all the time.
So 5 out of 15
Yeah, and we don't have to get all 15 for the units to get published, because it'll just be slower to publish them until we have all 15
systematized.
systematized.
Yeah.
Right? So we have like 1 through 5 systematized, which is essentially the creation of the Japanese content with audio.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting really close to having the stuff like translations for sentences and things finalized. So we'll be at about half, and then it's just, there's a lot to it. But anyway, we can do it for core units, like the lessons. But we really want our library to have all these lessons students keep asking for. They're asking for, they want to learn about history, culture. We want to learn about, there's niche topics related to the language even that it probably doesn't warrant being in a core unit, but a core lesson, but there's no reason not to have it in the lesson library.
Mm-hmm.
We might have a rather succinct explanation of a grammar point in the core studies, but you want to go see every possible construction for that grammar point.
Right.
Like, we should have a lengthy grammar lesson on that grammar topic, for
Yeah,
example.
of course.
We should have, stuff about history and the culture living in Japan, because these all actually feed back into the language. It's all related.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about Shokupan right now, right? I would be surprised if you found that word in, for example, a Japanese grammar book.
Yeah. I mean, what we're talking about building here, like, is obviously far beyond anything that currently exists anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to find that anywhere. Not on the internet, not in a book.
But there should be a lesson on Shokupan.
Yeah.
not what it is, but like the word and sentences with that word and things like that.
We should include a recipe for it too.
Yeah.
With a video on making it. It goes on forever. But anyway, back to like the core material, right? Here's the thing. Here's the thought experiment part of this, right? So, like we're saying, so it's around, let's just say it's 2,000 lessons for the 1460 units, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and those core lessons are lessons that are made by the core content team, right? Which is made up of some people that are full-time employees and some that are contracted to work with us, right? All right, here's the real facts. That's roughly cost around $300,000 to go from zero in a path to a whole, the whole path is like completed for core content, right? Somewhere around 300,000, assuming that a writer is getting paid near $25 an hour, which is roughly the going rate. And so that's on one hand, that's a lot of money. On the other hand, that's not so bad, but it does bring up an interesting question as to, okay, how do you get through that in the most efficient process while also you want to create all of this extra credit content we just talked about? So what we're thinking about for the extra credit content is there a way in which we can have, like, I don't almost want to say like student generated topics wherein other people write posts, more or less, like essentially blog posts, but then the NativShark team goes through and like essentially edits or vets the article or the post and makes sure that it's to standard, like it's to specs, so to speak. And then the sentences, if there's any like Japanese that's put into it, well, that we sort of have or we can get, so we put that in. So we put the two together, right? That's the thought experiment we have, right?
Yeah. So a lot of for the lessons that involve having any Japanese taught or mentioned, it goes back to our sentence library, which I think is the coolest thing that we're building personally because I love the content. Um, that's done. It's built. It's getting bigger every day already. The workflows for the sentence library are mostly done,
Mm-hmm.
and so if we had something like a student could write a lesson on Shokupan because we have it listed as one of the lessons we want written, but our core team is not going to be able to get to anytime soon. A student could go and start writing a lesson on that, and they could pull sentences that contain the word Shokupan from our library if they
Hmm.
wanted to mention it. So I think we'll always be kind of crazy about quality control when it comes to the sentence level because I
Hmm.
think the biggest problem with Japanese education right now is on the sentence level. It's they're just so bad. The sentences out there. I don't know how to say it nicely. Like I was thinking about dictionaries, for example. We want to have our own dictionary eventually, and everyone uses JMDict, which is an open source dictionary. Uh, you can look up online like best Japanese dictionary. They're all using the same dictionary. It doesn't matter. Like just pick the interface you like the best because everybody's using JMDict.
Hmm.
And it's actually not a bad dictionary, JMDict. The problem is everyone is using Tatoeba for the example
Yeah.
sentence. And this the example sentences are so bad.
I
I don't even know where to start. They're
ta- if
terrible.
you've looked into Tatoeba, they themselves like know that it's not good, that it's not a good source of lessons. By the way, like it's just been because it's open source, it's just been used in places that it shouldn't, and it was never intended to have been used in. It's gone outside of its intended purposes. So now here we are stuck with yeah.
Yeah, and this gets back to the interesting thing about teaching Japanese sentences in general. So, in the process of making content right now, we always have the context for the sentence right next to it. And for example, if we have a grammar lesson, which is essentially a JLPT lesson because it's just teaching a grammar point, which is all the JLPT does really is just teaches grammar and kanji and a set list of vocab. So we want to teach this grammar point. So we want to have a clean sentence that has all the things that a grammar book would have for that sentence.
Mm-hmm.
The context for these sentences is always an example from a study book for the JLPT or something
Yeah.
because we cannot make a natural context for the sentence the way it appears in every other resource.
Mm. And
Like
that's the
if
content that people are using to learn Japanese right now.
yeah, if you pulled I would guess roughly 99% of sentences from any platform, any book teaching Japanese. If you pulled it and tried to put it into NativShark, the context would end up being an example from a book because it's just too unnatural for a natural context. Like we can't have a context related to an actual thing that happens in the real world because the sentence has to change.
Mm.
So I was going through the translation workflows and I was doing some of the translations so that I could improve the instructions for the translators that are going to start doing them also. And I was telling Ray like these grammar ones where it's the context is from a book and it's just this like pretty sentence that I learned when I was a beginner and studying with books. They're so easy to translate.
Mm-hmm.
I could translate them at mega speed because it's so straightforward. And then we get the natural Japanese with this like natural context, and they're not nearly as easy to translate. And the context starts to really influence the meaning of the sentence, like in the real world. And so the fact that none of the other people teaching Japanese are doing this is why I think we probably would never let someone bring their own sentences into our platform.
Yeah. Can agree with that.
But I'm open to the idea of students writing their own lessons if they use our sentences.
Yeah.
And we just need to build out our library of sentences so that there's not a shortage of content for them to choose from.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting idea, and it could help with the problem of how do we fill in so many extra credit lessons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I broke down how many like what's the average. So if the average transaction is $41, which is what it is right now, how many do we need in order to pay for the content creation part of a path, and not the engineering costs, not anything else, just like the chunk that it costs content creation wise, and it would be 7,142.
To create what exactly?
To make up $300,000 of revenue to pay for the content creation part of a path, we would need 7,142 transactions at average transaction price of $42.
Yeah, so we need more students.
So we would need to multiply our current subscriber base by 9 times. I think. Yep. Not wait, 9 or 10 times in order to make it happen. So that's why we have to figure out from a business perspective what is the most efficient path. Does not include founders. Nope. I pulled that out of the calculation. That's just anything since launch. Oh, so you feel bad for being the cheapskate founder. Hey man.
Yeah.
It's all good. But yeah, so it's like, okay, that's a business challenge we have, right? Because like we're figuring out the content challenges. There's no shortage of direction. We're figuring out all right, what are the logistics of creating this content? What's the system? And then that's kind of like become pretty clear. Like we can explain that. It's working. Just got to build it out a bit more. But then it's also the development side of things. It's like we kind of know what to do now for developing the platform the rest of the way, like what the features are going to be, how we're going to actually build those features, like that kind of a thing. But now it's figuring it out, like from a business perspective. How do we? I would say that's like the challenging part at the moment.
Yeah.
It's almost the opposite of what a lot of businesses have, where they're like they think they know what to do with their business, but then their product's kind of like, what do we do with our product? Oof, yikes. We have like a decade of product extensibility here. But like business wise, it's like, how do we pull the pieces together into a path that gets us there,
Yeah, and I think also just getting stuff of value out quickly, because what we've noticed by not being more strategic in the way that we do these things is that we end up sitting on super valuable stuff.
Yeah, for a long time.
For a very long time. I just talked about how the sentence library is building out, and a student watching this or listening to this is thinking, well,
what
wish I could see
that. Yeah, what sentence library? What do you mean?
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't want to sit on a bunch of sentences. I want to expose them to students. And if we have the content there to make a lesson on Shokupan or whatever, then we should find a way to get it into students' hands quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, like why not actually publish free floating lessons when we can? Like, why would we sit on that ability? Like those things can happen irrespective of core content coming out, right? Like those can happen without slowing down or affecting core content production. So why aren't we doing them?
Yeah.
Why aren't we just providing
how can we get them out?
Yeah.
With our current resources in a short amount of time.
Yeah. Well, development wise, we can't get those things in until like January, late at the earliest, as far as like getting the sentence library exposed to students and getting it so that Actually, free floating lessons can happen now that I think about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
you
it's
technically
something that we
could.
should probably
You
do.
could do it now. Like as of
Hmm.
yesterday, when they pushed the
Yeah,
update for the publish toggle on units.
yeah.
So
Well, also essentially, like a using native shark article is a a free
that's so
floating
hard to
lesson.
say.
If you think
Free
about it,
floating.
free
No, it
floating.
is. You're right. So we could be doing that. And then all we have to
Yeah,
do is just like make it easier and nicer to
to
navigate.
find them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to where those are located, and then you're good. We could be publishing that stuff.
yeah,
We just pop that into the make the extra credit lesson counter, count those as the extra credit lessons, and people can start tracking their less extra credit lesson progress too.
it'd be cool.
Yeah, see, we could do it. Now I say that, but it's probably like January or February before that's the case, because we already have the rest of December, fully road mapped, and then um,
Yeah,
January.
and even if we do this thing like user created lessons, I mean, there's a lot of stuff involved there, like user permissions, giving someone access to our lesson editor.
Yeah, yeah, which means
Um,
bringing Amazon Cognito into the way that we handle user accounts, which means switching that over to AWS from GCP. So again, that's like those things we're talking about, like February at the earliest. It's possible. Like
yeah,
again, like I was saying, we know the path. Like we know how to do it, but it's putting pieces in the right place. That's the challenge. Um, I think one of the biggest multi-cloud at the moment. Yeah, actually, we are at the moment. Kind of like a very small amount of things are on AWS. The rest are on GCP. Um, but as time goes on, we'll be transitioning pretty much everything to AWS. Um, anyway, what I was saying is, right now we also have this thing where um, not that many people know about NativShark. Like our marketing is essentially non-existent. It's pretty much entirely been through word of mouth that has gotten us to where we are. So people who know about us tell other people. Um, but like that, I feel like we're at like the edge of our bubble, and we have to pop the bubble, break the bubble, blow a larger one.
yeah. Increase the size of the bubble.
Yeah. And that's a challenge as well, because that again, it costs money to do that. Can I just say that business is expensive?
Yeah, they are.
Is expensive. Like going through this route of, okay, because what we used to do, right, when we had Young Shark, it was just like the four of us, and it was a blog, and it was okay. That was cheap. It was easy. Oh, the thing was profitable. The entire time we ran a business together, we were profitable with that. Um, and then you start a I don't want to say that wasn't a business, but like I would call Native Shark like a proper, a proper traditional business, like a traditional startup kind of a thing. You start one of those, and you quickly realize that you're like, what is money anymore? What does it mean? Because these things cost so much, and you see dollar signs larger than you've ever seen, and you spend dollar signs larger than you've ever spent, and then you just like, oh, I guess that's part of being a business owner.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's some of the growth that we've had this year for sure. But yeah, so marketing. What do you think about that?
Marketing. Nah.
I've been writing some stuff down. Like, I feel like there's a couple facets. Like, one, we have word of mouth still. Like, we have the community. So finding ways to like activate the community more. That's one branch of it. I think another branch is getting an affiliate program running, so we can get
Yeah.
like get out there to affiliate marketers. Um, Another one is PPC ads, running those. Um, an-
Yeah.
Another one is creator partnerships, where we work with individuals to do sponsored segments. Um, like those are the branches that I feel like we have in front of us, and it's just a matter of like, okay, well, we kind of, like, I don't know, do we focus on one? Do we focus on all of them at once? That also costs money.
Yeah, and that's a good question. And I think right now we're focusing on all of them at once, seems like.
And also, none of them are happening.
Yeah, well, they're just happening slower than we'd like
Yeah.
because, like, you didn't even mention search engine marketing because we know it takes so much time.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I forgot about
Like,
like
we're doing
SEO.
it, like, we're working on it, but it takes time because that's just the business for that. And these other ones are supposed to not take time; they're faster, but
Mm,
they still take some time to set up.
yeah.
I think we're just really impatient because we always want everything to happen as soon as we think of it.
Yeah, it's true. Hmm. Yeah, well, that's kind of the strategy, I guess. So, and also in addition to that, so I'm out here, I'm out here trying to raise money as well. Since a couple of weeks, 2 weeks ago, we decided that um, the path of looking for like institutional investment made sense for the like ultimate end game vision that we have for NativShark. Because always there's always
Yeah,
this question like when you're thinking about when you have a startup or a business and you're like a lot of people just say, oh, I need investor money, that's what I got to do, but like you don't.
you probably don't.
You
Yeah,
really don't. Usually you don't. In most cases, I believe you do not need. Not only do I think you don't need it, I think you shouldn't take investor money. And one of the reasons why is because most businesses are not ones that will generate the kinds of returns that actually make it worthwhile. In the most for the most part. And so you as a founder will want to be cautious in that regard. Um, because you might end up with external pressures and things of that nature that change your business in a way that's not beneficial to you or your business. So you end up causing a greater problem by trying to solve a current temporary problem of which you feel like there's no money. Then there are businesses that exist that essentially require upfront capital, like if you're in hardware, right? Like if you're making like a smartwatch or something, like no one's really doing that anymore because it's kind of like big companies are doing it now. But when there was small companies doing it, like that kind of a product, it required because you have to have money to build prototypes and stuff like that. Um, but when you're in software and you're in our situation, we had to decide like, is this a company that is or is not the kind that would benefit towards investment? But after a long time of thinking about this, going back and forth and seeing like what is the long term vision for NativShark, it does make sense, and the market is absolutely there. Like language education, online language education alone is like a $25 billion market, and then edtech as a whole, online education is like a $420 billion market. Um, so if our goal is to compete with proper um, edtech and not just be like a small niche online product, then we do fit in line with investor money being worth it for the long run of
yeah,
what we're doing with the company. And I don't think there's been any point along this journey where you and I did not have insane plans and dreams for what we could do.
that's true.
So I think it's kind of always been something that would have made sense that we should pursue that path. We've just always been um, working on, I don't know, building something, proving something first. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and then also there's a few facets to it, like the fact that the product that I would say the majority of students think that we're trying to build is not a product that justifies getting an outside investment,
Yeah.
but the one that we want to build does. The other issue is that I know in my case, I have a tendency to not do those things because if I have, say, I have an hour of free time to work on the business and I don't have anything planned that I'm going to do right then, this never happens, but if it did happen, I would want to spend that hour building or moving towards something that is of direct value to a student, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't feel like I should go make a pitch deck for investors. It feels like I should write a lesson for a student because they'll learn more Japanese.
Yeah.
And I still actually do have this mindset because that's why we're not both doing it right now. Like you're doing the investment
Yeah.
research stuff, and
Right.
I'm mostly focused on what content can we get into students' hands. And I think to a large extent, that was always our focus. It's like we could go look for investment, but you're worried about improving the platform, you
Yeah.
know, working out the roadmap for the dev team, improving the user experience, and I'm working on improving the content and expanding it for students. So it felt like if we were going to talk to investors, they're kind of stealing value from our customers because we're not spending as much time doing the stuff that they want us to
Yeah.
do.
It's definitely has felt like that throughout the year.
And I think the only reason that it's starting to not feel like that is one, like we do have a clearer vision of the company and where it's going, and two, like we have better systems.
Mm. Yeah. I want to say lately, so like probably in the past 2 months, the systems that we've been building are allowing um time, like, how do I say this? It allows us to, I guess, have plans that are further out so that like in this immediate moment, it's not like I'm figuring out what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. It's like that's kind of already been figured out because there's now a system that's sort of rolling out. So that feels like, at least for me anyway, it feels like I have more time to spend on, trying to build a network of, other professionals that I can then get connections. I'm also like, it's COVID and I'm in Japan, so it makes it more difficult too. Like everything, but because of that, like because of COVID, it does mean that most of these things are now online, which is actually a bit of a benefit to me. So it's like both more challenging and less challenging at the same time to do so. But yeah, I think that you're right. That some of our recent advances in like our systems have made it a bit easier to do.
Yeah, and the fact that when we do have strategy meetings and things, we're not talking about next week. We're talking about months in advance.
Yeah, which is a
It's like
good place to be.
I saw that article the other day about how Jeff Bezos only makes decisions 3 years in advance. It was, which sounds clickbaity because I'm sure like he doesn't only do that,
Right.
but someone tells him like, "Oh, Amazon had a great quarter just now," and he says, "Oh, thanks," but in his mind he's thinking, that quarter was baked 3 years ago because that's how strategy works.
Yep.
I was reading a branding book a few months back, and it was kind of an older book, and it was written right around the time when Amazon stopped selling books and tried to start selling all sorts of stuff.
Mm.
And the writer of the book was talking about how Amazon was ruining its brand because everyone knows they're a bookseller. So like now they're going to try to start selling a bunch of other stuff and they're going to ruin their brand as being a bookseller. And now you read it, with 2020 hindsight, like, and it's quite obvious that the strategy team of Amazon knew that they were not a book company at that point.
Mm.
The customer thought they were a book company at that point.
Okay, so I
And
don't want to
so,
like. I'm not trying to draw a parallel to Amazon here because that would be absurd. But
oh no, yeah, of
but
course not.
but
But
what
I'm
I'm
talking about
saying
like
is
the idea of planning ahead.
no. I'm gonna say something that why I preface with that. That was my
Oh, okay.
disclaimer. But that's kind of how I feel when I'm talking about NativShark. Not only to students but also to like other business people to a certain extent. I mean, if you look at what we're doing, it looks like what we just do is teach Japanese, and I get that. And it looks like what we do is just teach language, but I would like to do more than that. And I not only would I like to do that, but like we have legitimate plan and strategy to do more than that. But when we branded ourselves a certain way, yeah, I understand why people are like, are you really sure that that's a good idea? But I mean, like, we're gonna push for it anyway, you know.
Mhm.
Like, that's what we're gonna do. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
and then
not.
the other
Yeah,
interesting thing is you say that to current students, and a lot of them will respond by saying, "You should just focus on Japanese." Um, and that makes total sense because that's the only product they're interested in right now is
yeah,
learning Japanese. But in answer to that, I would say that we have gotten so much better at teaching Japanese because we're trying to build systems that scale to other subjects.
yeah. That's what I was gonna say too. It's like because we're focusing on something larger than just one thing, it makes the one thing significantly better because now we have to challenge all the assumptions that come with when you're creating one product. He's like, oh, you do it this way, but then you're like, what if I needed to do this other thing too? Like, what if I needed to teach Spanish? It's like, oh, well, we forgot X, Y, and Z. Oh, that would make if we put that into the way we taught Japanese, that would make that a lot better. So like, there's a lot of, um, you know, like interplay between these kinds of things.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to systematize how we're teaching anything, then first you have to build a system around how we're teaching Japanese, which means that there's all these vagaries and undecided things that were happening that have to be clarified before you can move forward.
Mm-hmm. Forgot to update
Like
this.
like in one of our earlier, like right now in phase 1, you'll notice a lot of times there is context written before a sentence in the body of a lesson, something like, you and I are Japanese moms or something, and blah blah blah. And
Yeah.
so we were doing that because we knew it made it easier to learn and it made it more effective.
Yeah.
But if you went into the back end of the system, there wasn't a specific context attached to every sentence in both the target language and the source language. So, like in both Japanese and English, there's a context written for that particular sentence. In other words, it wasn't systematized.
Mm-hmm.
We were relying on a lesson writer to make up a context for that sentence. And then you have a Japanese editor checking it and being like, that context doesn't make sense for this sentence, because the Japanese writer should have decided the context when they were writing the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that we tried to systematize things to expand to other subjects and other languages too is the reason that we have been able to
Figured that
speed up
out.
the way we're making the content for Japanese, and it's so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Like the sentences getting made right now are, I think, awesome. I love them.
Yeah.
I learn something every day, and I'd be a phase 4 student if I was a student of NativShark. Well, I am, but my phase isn't ready yet. But
Yeah.
I would learn stuff from every phase, but like in general, you could probably say I'm a phase 4 student. And I learn something every few minutes when I'm going through the content being made right now.
Yeah. That's crazy. So clearly we need to get that out. I think that if, dude, honestly, I'd probably be like, I guess I have to look. Wait, is it A putting together like an index? Is that happening?
Index of
A
what?
more okay. We've done it in the past, but like, are we getting a more concrete sort of index of more or less what the units would cover across? Because the one we made before was like that's kind of outdated now.
Across other subjects, you
No,
mean?
no,
Other
across the
languages and
phase,
stuff?
like phase 3, 4, like a general outline.
Doing a roadmap. It's not general, it's very specific.
Okay, because I'm what we have now is like one that we made a year ago before we had all these great systems. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
when I'm thinking about loosely what's in each phase, I'm thinking about um the old roadmap, right? But
Yeah.
it's now being updated to
So,
fit into these systems
yeah,
so that it can be a
it's
machine.
irrelevant now.
Now that's
Mm-hmm.
irrelevant. So based on that, like based on the new one, I'm probably like a phase 2 student. I'm probably not hardly even a phase 3 student with my
Yeah, well,
levels.
the problem is like we didn't start with NativShark, so it's just we're all messed up.
Yeah,
Like our level is just all over the place.
dude, it would be so much better to start now once it's out. Like all of our students that have gone through like are either like they're either halfway through phase 1 or like all the way through phase 1 already. Like those students,
Yeah.
their study lives are like so set. I'm envious.
Yeah, and they started like
Oh my
4 months
God.
ago.
I know. Have you
I,
seen
I
some
really
of our
I
students?
really wish we had a time machine and I could just bring back Nico from 4 months after he started learning
Yeah.
Japanese, and our students who had just finished phase one could be like, this guy, like this guy writes content for Native Shark.
I know.
Because I was
Yeah.
so bad. I was terrible at Japanese. I didn't know anything.
Yeah. Me either. I mean,
And
I
I
knew
was
more than
studying
you did,
like a madman
but
at that point.
I definitely after my first 4 months, I definitely knew more than you did after your first 4 months because I had some of your resources to go off of. Like the earliest version of HJS is what I
Yeah.
used to like kind of plot my studies. So it's like the generational thing, right? Like the
Yeah.
parents make a better life for the kids. Hopefully, right? You break the chain, and then the the next child starts with a head start, so that then their kid starts with a head start, et cetera, as long as things go on. It's like that, but like in the past 10 years that we've all been working on this, like you had your
Yeah.
experience, then I had my experience that was better than yours, but still not great. And then we built this thing together that our students now have like a god tier learning experience. Yeah,
Yep.
I like hyping up our
But yeah,
students.
she's making a roadmap for everything, all four
Okay, cool.
phases.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that. Because the old one is obviously very old.
Very. It's like
Yeah,
very for us. Yeah, it's like 6 months old or something.
I was more than 6 months at this point.
Well, the first draft of it was like, February, March of
Yeah,
this year. I was saying
dude,
last year,
remember when
this
we
year.
thought we could make content quickly, like a year ago? Oh my god, we were wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we could have if we didn't upgrade our standards.
I suppose.
If we were just gonna copy paste Nihongo Shark,
Mm,
then we could have.
I guess. I guess that was kind of part of the plan a year ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's why the roadmap we had when we did our lifetime sale
Mm,
in January of this year seemed like content was going to get released so fast. Is because we thought it was not that different from Nihongo Shark content.
right.
And then we started building systems and we found a bunch of problems with the content.
And now we realize that all that content is pretty much only good for being like the lesson archive, part of the lesson archive.
Yeah, it'll be good to get all those sentences in the platform.
Listen, well, I kind of want to get the lessons in too. We talked about that
We
like
will,
a
but
little bit,
yeah,
but
but the sentences also are like what I mean is get the sentences and add the stuff that's missing, like context.
hmm.
We have like 9,000 sentences or something in Nihongo Shark courses. So,
Wait, how many
getting
sentences?
like 9,000 or something like that.
Yeah,
There's a lot. I don't
9,000.
know.
Yeah, it's like 900
Something like that.
lessons and like 9,000, which makes sense. It's about 10 sentences per lesson, roughly. You know what?
Yeah.
So we didn't
If
talk
we
about
just
it
talk about
all.
sentences in general, we have like 20,000 or something
Oh,
just
from
sitting
from
there.
from Nihongo Shark.
Yeah, and students didn't see all those. We have them
Yeah.
like
Okay. No,
in
we have
spreadsheet.
20,000 or
Goes
so from.
goes goes back to the
Yeah.
issue of sitting on content and the students don't get to see. It's like why I want the sentence library to get out so we can get these sentences with context and stuff in students' hands when they want them.
We had, or we have. Oh no, we had around 20,000 sentences from just Nihongo Shark, and then from NativShark, you've been working on new sentences, correct?
Yeah,
How many of those are
true.
you up to? A couple hundred?
I can check. Depends like what you mean. Like what stage is considered a sentence.
Mm.
You know.
What stage? Yeah.
What I
Something
mean
we.
is because
Oh,
like there are sentences that writers have written that are probably sent back when they go to the edit phase
oh
because they're
okay.
not up to standard yet because a lot of
Yeah.
our writers are still training. But looks like we have, let's say I removed that part, then we would have
Hmm.
yeah, about 500 are sitting there. That's from like this
Nice.
last
Not bad.
3-4 weeks. We've increased by 500 sentences.
Yes, 500 sentences that students can't see and use. So how many writers do you have in training? 5, right? 4?
Well, we laid off of quite a few of them, but we've been
I
through
mean,
like
laid
5
off
or
isn't. I
6.
mean, they're like short contracts. So like laid off isn't quite the right word. It's like,
I don't know what to call it. We ended
yeah,
their contract with a
yeah.
lot of them, and other ones we paused the contract, and then we're gonna give them another chance later, um, because it's too much work to train that many people all at once. We realized when
Hmm.
we don't have we only have one person who can train them, which is Ray, but she also is, making the roadmap for the 4 phases, and she's
Yeah.
doing the majority of the work for the core content coming out in phase 2 soon.
Hmm.
So, I didn't want her spending all day training
Training
writers
writers.
if it was going to make us not have any phase 2 content forever. So we paused contracts on some of them. And right now there's 3 writers, 2 voice actors.
Hmm. Okay. 3 writers. Okay, so 3 writers then is the answer to your question, Josh.
Yes, my long winded
Yeah.
question. We
Um,
have 2 writers on pause contracts, though.
something that we haven't talked about today is this conversation that was going on in the community over the past week, about flashcards. Because I asked the question, hey, flashcards are piling up and they're not serving the purpose. What does everyone think about it? What if we made it so that there was like a cap on flashcards or something like that? Um, and yeah, most people in the community were like, yeah, there's too many flashcards. I wouldn't mind having a way to not have so many. Um, and so, yeah, so we're working on that. I've been missing from the community for the last 2 weeks because of work time commitments. That's tragic. That's unacceptable. You got to skip on those work commitments. What are you doing?
Yeah, I think the main benefit of flashcards is supposed to be that they make you feel better.
Yeah,
I said way earlier in the year, like in February, March,
yeah,
I said to Caleb, I think a student could do no flashcards and they would still be fine if they just went through the units. They just went through the course studies
yeah.
and didn't do a single flashcard. I mean, they do the learn part of it, just
Mm,
not, they didn't review any, is what I was saying.
yeah.
Um, which is blasphemy, right?
Well, I mostly
And
disagreed with you then.
I'm not recommending that students do that, but that's why I think a cap is fine, because you will learn it if you show up every day. You cannot not learn it, because if you get to say phase 3, phase 4, the volume of content you're encountering is so much higher that all those words that are common show up anyway, and the frequency with which you see them increases.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, in phase 1, you have this word that you keep forgetting it, and I keep having to redo it on my flashcards, and like you're seeing it once every 3 days, and then once a week, and then whatever. You get to phase 3 or 4, you're at the higher level. You see it 5 times a day in real life, just like watching shows or playing games or reading books. So you can't not learn it. The problem is you have to get to the level where you can consume that content comfortably. So on the one hand, flashcards are useful because they're like a walking stick to help you like get, like if you're like aging in reverse, you're like this old person that has like a cane, right? And the flashcards are a cane, but eventually you don't need it, you just throw it away and you can walk and then run.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is why, yeah. So Josh says I would have no memory retention at all if I didn't have flashcards. But if you did one unit every day for 4 years, I bet you wouldn't need flashcards.
Yeah, that's the point that Nico's
The,
trying to make.
yeah, like the flashcards are, I like them. They're good, and they give you peace of mind because you don't feel like you're forgetting everything.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have flashcards, you feel like you're forgetting everything. But in reality, it takes quite a bit of exposure to internalize new language content and to know it, like really know it, like in your bones.
Mm.
Um, and because it takes a while, like the flashcards help us get the repetition more quickly. for content that we've seen. And what I'm describing, I think does not work if you are studying with a system that doesn't have +1 iterations, like the C that we have.
Yeah. Contextual iterative immersion.
Yeah, I don't want to say the whole thing, but I
C.
don't think it works if you don't have that. I think you need it. The content needs to build on itself so that the repetition is built into the content you're experiencing, so that over time it increases. Because if the units are built in such a way that if you've completed all the units before the one you're doing right now, it becomes not difficult to do the current unit.
Mm-hmm.
And you're able to do that for 1,460 units. And the units, once you get to like 1,000 or something, have tons of language in them. You don't need the flashcards because you have all the content right there in front of you and you're understanding it because you've seen it so many times.
Right. It does make sense what you're
But
saying.
I do think we should keep flashcards because like they do.
Yeah.
They're the walking stick. They're the king,
Okay,
you
the
know?
problem here is not whether or not we're going to keep or not keep flashcards. Like when as far as language studies go, we will keep flashcards. The question
Yeah.
is, how do we make them not become a reason that people quit their studies? That is the concern. Now, for some
Yeah.
people, they say, "What? That they're not a problem to me at all. Like I love them, or like I have no problem with them. They don't. Even right now, they see no issue. But there is a not small group of people that do not feel that way, and that's because each person has a different experience in life, and everyone views these kinds of things differently because everyone's brain is different. So it's a challenge to try to build something that accounts for this wide variety of people that are learning, right? Because you could ask Jacob, right? You could say how you feel about the flashcards, and he'll be like, I mean, I have 100 to 120 of them a day, but they take me 4 minutes to get through, so I don't really care. He's like, on days if it gets to like 140 to like 150, that takes a little bit of time, and I'm kind of bummed. But usually he's like, nah, I get through them pretty quick, not that big of a deal. Okay, you ask another student who has like 50 flashcards, and they're like, I'm totally overwhelmed, and it takes me like an hour to get through my 50 flashcards. Okay, we could say one of those students is doing the flashcards correctly and one of them is doing them wrong. We can say that, but it doesn't feel that way to either of those students because nowhere does the platform itself help you understand that or show that to you or explain it to you or actually make it that way, right? So that's the question here, is how do we build the platform so that we get more of the first situation rather than the second? And some of the things that we were talking about this past week, like I put out in the announcement this Monday about, we've been talking about how to solve this problem. So Jacob and Manuel and I were talking for a good hour or so on possible solutions, and we realized that just putting a flat cap actually doesn't necessarily work, because you end up getting into situations where you never see certain things or you only see other certain things. So it's like what you do is you got to put in a couple things, right? So you could put in a bit of a cap, but you also have to put in some sort of a forgot loop protection system. And then another thing was like allowing like a split review session where there's like the ones that are most important, and then that's part of the core. But then on the other side, if you want to do more studies, then you can do more cards. And then another facet is the fact that we did the math on we went through the database and we did calculated some averages across all student data, and we calculated the numbers of cards per unit, and we found out that there's literally too many cards per unit. Even if you answered them all with the perfect like smiley face, it would be impossible for you to keep under 50 cards the way that the flashcards work right now, because of one, the way the algorithm works, and two, the way that the number of cards is. So we thought, based on the numbers, it looks like the vocab cards and the kanji cards aren't necessarily an issue. It comes in with lesson cards, which is what we've talked about this before, because there's some lessons that have 21 flashcards that are triggered as a result of them. The average is 12, I believe, 12 flashcards from a lesson. But here's a thought. Okay, you haven't heard this one, Nico. Here's a thought.
I'm ready.
Lesson flashcards don't exist.
Okay.
But you ain't come. Just get rid of them entirely. And instead, if in our future lessons, the way that we want to do them, right? It's you have a vocab lesson or you have a grammar lesson, right? So a vocab lesson would add cards to the vocab card, because with the new learning experience, you've got kanji, you got the kanji, like the kanji quiz, the vocab quiz, and the grammar quiz. And so the vocab quiz would pull new vocabulary from that lesson. If it was a vocabulary lesson, that's fine. That works out. Those are flashcards. But if it's a grammar lesson, we've said this a million times, but grammar just doesn't work in flashcards. But yet we keep accidentally like putting them in flashcards. So the thought is, you do have a grammar lesson. You get the grammar quiz at the end of the unit, like we've been talking about, and then we build another sort of a system that basically at the beginning of your unit, like after you've done flashcards, you then have a little a session of grammar, like the runs the grammar quiz again on the previous day. Like, we're not entirely sure here, but like it runs the grammar quiz again based off of some data, very in like a very quick sort of way. And then as a reinforcement material, you can run the grammar quiz based off of like parameters that you enter yourself or parameters that the system has on you based on like what rating you gave a lesson, based on your previous quiz results. Does that make sense? But the idea is here we just remove all of those from being flashcards, but they're still sentences, so they're still shadow loopable. They're still able to be put into your custom flashcards, but we leave flashcards themselves, like the mandatory flashcards, for being what they're well suited for, which is learning vocabulary and then also learning kanji. The idea here is that like the science of flashcards says they're the best when you're only trying to remember like one piece of material, and by nature, by definition, grammar cards break that, but vocabulary doesn't. That's a lot of words. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that works for the way content is being made now.
Hmm.
It doesn't work retroactively if you're phase one, and we have to go fix some things for it to work like that.
Yeah. I wasn't talking about retroactive. I was
Yeah,
talking about from now
but
forward.
like for the next units that come out, like it works. It's not a problem. I think we would need to figure out this like review of grammar content, because it doesn't make sense to have the whole grammar
Hmm.
thing, like the whole quiz, for units you've studied a while ago.
Hmm.
Like if I was going to review grammar, and I've already learned it, then I should only see like one sentence for each grammar
Yep.
point when I review
I
them.
big agree on that. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what we were talking about too, is that it should only be
yeah,
like the grammar quiz itself should only actually be on one or two sentences. You don't need the full seven that came from the lesson. Like you could go look at the lesson if you wanted to, or like view more examples. You shouldn't be quizzed on all seven if it's the same grammar point. That doesn't make any sense. Like it's a waste of time.
yeah. But yeah, I think it should probably work.
So if we ran those numbers and if we removed all of those types of flashcards, it would drastically decrease the number, because like SRS is like pile up more or less exponentially. So we just by
Mhm.
removing all of those, it now keeps that number a lot lower. So even if we do put a cap on, it's likely that students might not even hit the cap if we pull those out.
Yeah, that could work.
Yeah.
Um, I think having the option for students to study more of the stuff that's pulled out should solve any dissent about
Right.
that.
I agree with that. Yeah. Yeah. As long as
Even
yeah.
if we had a cap, it's like just let them study the ones that got capped after core
Right.
studies if they're worried about it, because that's the whole that just goes back to like flashcards that are for peace of mind.
Exactly.
So if you need to do every single one for your peace of mind, and you don't mind doing all of them, and you don't take forever to do your flashcards, because you shouldn't,
Mm-hmm.
like do them all, that's fine.
Exactly.
But if if the system is making everyone do that and it's causing other people to quit, like it's not working.
Right. Like that's the number one thing we have to balance here is how do we help it so that people don't quit? You know, how do they
Yeah.
help them? Because if you quit, again, we've said this many times. If you quit, you lose your goal. You're not the number one way to get fluent in Japanese is to just not quit. Um, that's how you get the goal. So we're constantly trying to balance the system such that people don't quit. Like it's like in some sense, like it's like balancing a video game where then you're trying to make it like most fair for players, whatever your objective is. So our metric or objective is helping people not quit. So that's the result that we want. So then we balance the whole platform based on that as the outcome. Like reach your goal. We know to reach the goal, you must not quit. So how do we balance the entire system such that the fewest amount of people quit? That's like the thought process. Um,
Nice.
yeah, some comments from Josh here. When we were talking about flashcards taking
I'm,
too long.
I'm gonna run to the restroom, but I'll be
All
back
right,
in a second.
I'll just read some of these while you're doing that. Until I did what Nico suggested and enabled the audio on the front of the flashcard, each card would take me 1 minute. Yeah, that's a really long time for a card. Some people are. I take 10 seconds or less on a card. Some people are even faster than that. I think you could archive most of my lesson flashcards, but I always forget to. Exactly. So that's why we're like, wait, probably don't need these. I feel so guilty about archiving cards that even when I get one of those super really easy, yo, that's crazy. See, that's the thing that I've noticed too, and we need to somehow, like, I don't know, we gotta help people with that. There's no reason to feel worried or sad or guilty about archiving a flashcard. Like you should archive flashcards. Like in some sense, maybe the system itself should start auto archiving flashcards more aggressively. So like students can feel like they've got like a learning bar on them. You know, like if you were to go look at all of like maybe there's a place where you can view all of your currently learning cards, and we put like a progress bar on all of them. And out to a certain once like the progress bar is full, then that card is auto archived. Kind of a thing, just to like maybe help people feel less weird about it. I know what you mean though. Like I've definitely been there. I've definitely felt like, oh no, I can't archive anything. Um, but sumimasen, just archive it. You know, like, It's interesting. It's like a psychological thing for sure. We're talking about people feeling like essentially guilty for archiving cards.
Yeah, I mean, SRS flashcards are just a guilt system in general.
I know it's kind of bad.
Like people do not have good relationships with their algorithm.
Nah, that's why we need to change it. So like, I think what we just talked about, like implementing some version of everything, a little bit of everything we talked about, is probably the right path. I don't think it's like exactly one of those things, but it's like
Yeah.
some mix of that would probably drastically improve the situation.
Okay, so this is related. Say we have 12 new words per unit.
Mm-hmm.
Ray tells me every day that's not enough words for 1,460 units. 12 words per unit, 12 new vocab per unit is not enough for someone to reach the level that we want them to reach by the end of phase 4.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a ton of words. That's like, it's well over 15,000, I think.
Mm-hmm. Should be.
The past GLPT one, like 10,000 words or something, right? But we don't want that level. We want students to reach, a near native level at the end of phase 4.
17,472.
And you figure I probably knew, like, I don't know, 20,000 words or something when I met Ray. No, maybe I knew like 16,000 or something back then.
That was 6 years of study?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was not phase 4 then. I can tell you that.
No, you would have been probably like late phase 2, my guy.
Oh, who knows, man? Not even, because like I had barely passed JLPT N2.
Wow. You might have been a solid phase 2 student.
Yeah, maybe, huh? Anyway, so this gets into the issue of how strict we are for this for C for the contextual iterative immersion. Take a word like tero, which is just katakana tero, which means terrorism.
Hmm.
It's a loan word. Do you think it has to be a vocab card before it can be used?
It depends on what
Like, does
language
it
you're coming
deserve one
from.
of?
English, I guess.
Okay, so that's the thing, right? So it's like one of the 12 spots, right? If you're an English speaker, like no, like, but what if you're studying Japanese in Korean or something?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's, I mean, I don't know, in Korean probably has the same word, but like in a language where they don't know English and they don't have the same word for
Yeah.
terrorism,
Look,
does that warrant one of the 12 spots in a unit for vocab?
I would say it does.
I think so too for that one.
Yeah.
I think it does because we do TL to S, like the TL is planned,
Mm-hmm.
so they don't think about like, oh, this is the same in English, so it
Yeah.
doesn't count. Which is what we do in phase 1 right now, by the way, but we're gonna undo it.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, I'm thinking about something actually. Okay, phase 1 should have less than 12 or 12 or less vocab words just because it's phase 1. I think phase 2 either like not immediately in phase 2, but like in the first quarter of phase 2, you start increasing it. And then by the time you're in phase 3, I think you make it more. You make it as many, like, is it 15? Is it 16? I think that's fine. And there's two reasons why they say that. One, because I think most people are actually only looking for a phase 2 level of Japanese.
yeah,
Students don't know this right now. No one realizes this because again, it doesn't exist. So I understand it's our fault. But I think most people are actually only just looking for. Most people are probably when they finish phase 2 going to be. I'm kind of done actually. I learned enough Japanese because that's it's a very high level of Japanese actually to be done with phase 2.
well, it's good enough that depending on your goal, you might not really care anymore.
That's right. You would be better at Japanese
Yeah.
than I am now, most likely by finishing phase 2, and I can live in Japan comfortably. Right?
Yeah,
So
it's all Joyo kanji. Also,
yeah, you're already done. You're done with all
you're done
Joyo.
with general use
Yep.
kanji at the end of phase 2.
Yep. So a large group of people are going to be done after phase 2. So that's why I think doing it like that is fine. Like actually, so phase 3, okay, you committed, right? So that's where it's like, okay, sure, 15, however many new vocabs it needs to be to get through. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm not even finished, so that's just part of it. So
Okay.
I agree with you.
I forgot my other reason, but that was some one reason. The second reason I can't remember what I was gonna say.
And then we take a word like meshi, which means food, like a meal.
Yeah.
It means rice, actually, but meshi, right? That would definitely have one of the 12 slots in the unit. It's a
Mhm.
completely new word, and it's Japanese. After you've learned meshi and after you've learned tero, and we teach you meshi tero, which is, it means like food porn. It's like pictures of food that are seductive, that make you want to eat that food really bad.
Yeah.
The term is food porn in English.
Yeah.
Like there's a Wikipedia article called food porn.
Basically, the entire Shogeki no Soma anime.
Yeah, probably.
The Food Wars one. That's what it's about.
If we already taught you meshi and we already taught you tero,
Mm-hmm.
does meshi tero get one of the 12 slots in a unit as a new vocab?
See, in that case, I say probably not.
Yeah, it's food terrorism. You can just kind of guess what it means. It's rice terrorism, food terrorism.
I mean, based on the context, you should be able to. I would assume.
Maybe.
It depends on your level though too. Like, are you going to introduce this
Yeah.
in late phase 2, or are you going to introduce this in phase 1? Because in phase 1, no, it'd definitely be a vocab card because the person, you're unlikely to make that connection easily. But by the time you're
Yeah.
at late phase 2, you're going to be used to those kinds of connections because it would have
Yeah.
happened. So if it's the first one, probably should be a vocab card. But if it's not, then maybe it doesn't have to be, which I understand adds more complexity into deciding what is and isn't.
Yeah. It's a conversation that Ray and I were having yesterday. And I
Mm.
think I agree with you. Again, I don't think it should have a slot. I actually think if you learn Meshi after you learn Tero, the example sentence for when you learn Meshi could be Meshi Tero. Like it could be the one with foodborne, I think.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, we even if we increase the number of new vocab, if we also counted those types of things as new vocab always, there's no way we'd cover them all.
Yeah.
Not only that, but like,
Well, I don't think you need to, right? Like,
yeah, I don't either, but it's worth having a clear standard that we
yeah.
would decide. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, because
Well, like the word
like what we're
itself.
talking about is she has a meshitero in a example sentence or something, and then I'm like, well, does that need a vocab card? And it's like, well, what does it? I don't know.
Well,
Like,
like here's the thing too.
let's standardize it.
It should have a dictionary entry, of course, but it doesn't
Yeah.
need to be a core vocab card, right? I think that's another thing we should get more used to doing is that not everything that we teach does need to be a core vocabulary card, but it does need to have a full entry such that if one was to look it up in the search, they could add it to their personal cards should they want to, right? I think that's another important thing here is in order to make this like what we need to think about more clearly is what is actually the required things that need to be learned and what kinds of things can we actually leave out and people can go and add to their custom cards if they want to or just not because you don't need to, right? Because there's going to be two types of students. There's going to be the ones that are just going to do only exactly what is in the core, and there's going to be the ones who go above and beyond in all possible ways. That's going to be the two types of students over time. Like there's going to be some people who like float between, but they're going to vary to be one or the other, always.
Yeah.
Like if you look at thousands of students and you like did a distribution calculation on them, I'm pretty sure they would all be within one of these two groups, at least within a standard deviation of those two groups, right? So what we need to figure out is how do we make the first group actually learn everything I need to learn because they're going to just focus on whatever's in the core and they will do everything we put in the core. So I think right
Yeah.
now we accidentally put too much in the core, more than is required. I think that's what's happening a little bit. In the sense of like right now we would have Meshi, we'd have Tero, and we'd have Meshi Tero all as a vocab card, and we have
Probably, yeah.
all of these lesson flashcards that actually don't add a lot of value to core studies. That is, because again, the goal is to get people to consistently stay with it over time.
Yeah. Agreed.
So I feel like that is definitely something to keep in mind with the farther along we get into phase 2 is like determining what is and what is not going to be a core vocab card. I think just by making the change alone that grammar doesn't have flashcards is going to make a huge difference. So we only have vocab and kanji flashcards. The rest are just they get entries, of course. The example sentences get entries in the sentence library, and then you run a grammar quiz situation, which is something we have to finish developing, but we have ideas on how to do it. Probably, again, this is probably like a February thing, maybe January. But we put all that together, and I think like the core experience is almost done then. Like it's really close. We're getting really close to having the full core experience of NativShark.
Yeah, just gotta tweak the content to match it.
Yeah, the current phase 1 content, it needs to be tweaked for sure. Hmm. It's a conversation for another day.
Many conversations for many other days.
Yeah, definitely. Um, on that note, we've been going for an hour and 41 minutes. Should we
Hey.
should we end it here?
Yeah, probably, huh?
I mean, I'm down to keep talking if you want, but
We
I,
covered all our points, I think, mostly.
we did. Chie asked us a question that we didn't
If anyone has questions, yeah, we can
answer.
answer them.
Chie but earlier said 一番好きなあったかい飲み物は? And we didn't answer that.
You can go first.
Um, if it is the winter like it is right now, and it's the early morning and I'm biking to the office, I really like to get hot lemon drink at the konbini or the vending machine.
Is that like a tea? I've seen that
I
before.
don't. It's not really a tea. It's like like hot water that has like lemon juice,
Hmm.
lemon juice and honey in it. I don't think it's a tea though. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe it is hot lemon tea. I don't know. I don't remember it. It just says hot lemon on it, and I get it, and it's delicious in the mornings. Other than that, I like hot matcha or like kojicha is pretty good. What you?
I
Ichiban
don't like hot
suki.
drinks.
But if you had to pick one, is there zero hot drinks? Like you never drink a hot drink in your
I
life,
don't drink hot. I will if like someone gives it, but I don't like them.
so you'll never choose one, even if you're cold.
Even if I'm cold, I'm getting like iced coffee.
Mm.
There's a meme about that. It's like you order iced coffee in the winter and everyone freaks out. Everyone orders hot coffee in the summer and it's like supposed to be normal.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't have a problem. I'm gonna say I don't have a problem with cold drinks in the winter, and in fact, I do enjoy them. I do enjoy cold drinks much more than warm drinks. But if we are picking out of warm drinks, I do drink them occasionally, and hot lemon is my favorite. So I like hot cocoa
Gotcha.
too. But
I mean, I'll drink a hot coffee, like black, every now and then,
mm,
or with milk or something. Um, Maybe if I went out to breakfast or something and back in the U.S., I would do that. That's about
mm,
it.
we should go out to breakfast sometime. Too bad we currently live in two
The
separate cities.
breakfast scene in Japan isn't all that great.
Well, I mean, like if you go to like one of the American kind of restaurants, like a Denny's or something.
Oh yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
I'll get a Denny.
like there's a Denny's that's close by my house. So there was that one, Jonathan's or whatever it's called near your in Kamata. Yeah, that place has.
Song.
Yeah, that has like normalized American diner breakfast, like with the hash browns and
Yeah,
the eggs and
sort of.
the pancakes. I don't know, or Denny's
Yeah,
definitely does because Denny's is the same.
sort of. Not totally, but
Sure.
yeah, you can't order eggs the way you like.
Really?
It's like that's just they're going to be scrambled or they're going to be that like almost raw sunny side up type thing going on.
I was at one cafe kind of place for breakfast, and they asked me how I wanted my eggs, and I was like, "Am I still in Japan?" Yeah, I was kind of
Yeah,
shocked.
I would imagine it's going to get more popular. I mean, they have like if you go to Kawasaki, which is like not far from where I live,
Hmm.
they have like eggs and things, right? Which is a chain from America.
Yeah.
So it's like it's the American restaurant, but it doesn't open till like 11 o'clock or
Oh yeah,
something.
that's not.
So it's like
That's
a
lunch.
breakfast restaurant in the U.S. would open at like 6, 7, 8 in the
Yeah.
morning. Uh,
Another.
so yeah, yeah. If you want to eat breakfast like at a breakfast time, you have to go to like a family restaurant, which is like Denny's or Jonathan's or whatever, or you have to go to a coffee shop like Tully's or Starbucks or
Right.
something.
Yeah. Yeah, they're convenient.
Even Starbucks doesn't open until like 7, 7:30, 7 usually in Japan. Whereas it
Mm.
opens at like 4:35 or something.
McDonald's
At least
is
where I'm
open.
from in the US.
McDonald's is open at 5 a.m.
Yeah. If you want a coffee at 5 a.m., you gotta go to McDonald's.
Yeah, or the convenience, like
Yeah.
7.
But if you want to sit down and like eat there.
Good point.
When we first came to Japan in January of this year, I used to work at I I'd get to McDonald's when it opened. I think 5:30 is when it opened, the one around here.
Yeah.
And I would be like waiting outside the door when it opened, and I'd work on my laptop for a couple hours at McDonald's.
Damn. Ursula asked like way long time ago in the chat, are you guys back to doing things in the office? And for those who are in Fukuoka, yes. Though we run like a very flexible schedule, I guess. Like we have in-person meeting on Monday, and then in-person meeting on Wednesday, and then Thursday I'm in the office. And then Ty and Jacob are in the office, but Manuel is not in the office. Then Friday, Ty's in the office, but I don't think anyone else is on Friday. Jacob is sometimes. Ty's in the office every day, because like it just works really well for his living situation. And then Jacob's in the office like 3 or 4 days. And then I'm in the office 3 days. But on Wednesday, which is today, I'm only in the office for a little bit. Like I go in to see people for the meeting. That's it. So, yes, we're in the office, but it's not like everyone's in the office kind of a thing. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. Next week, I think one of our top topics of discussion should be the Zoom revolution, as people have called it, which is the effects of COVID and how it has influenced like teleworking and education online, like classrooms through Zoom classes and things. Because I'm sure you also have a lot to say about it, because I have a lot of opinions on it.
Yeah, of course.
And I think it's probably affected most people's lives listening to this. And some people's companies or schools are doing a not terrible job, and other people's companies or schools are just doing a sort of terrible job.
And some people are doing a good job.
And a small percentage of them are doing a pretty good job.
Yeah. That'd be fun to talk about.
Figuring out how that would work for you, and also the struggles we had with this during this year.
Yeah.
Because we learned a lot about that.
Yes,
sure.
We definitely did.
So next week we can talk about that.
Well, not next week because
Are we gonna do the 30th? It's supposed to be a holiday, but
30th.
Or should we do it like the 29th, like the end of
Let's
the
do
year?
it on the 29th because let's do that. I'm gonna
Matsunenchi, which is like
wait, I'm gonna be in Kumamoto. I can still do it though.
You should do it.
Yeah. I'll bring a microphone. I can do it. Yeah, okay. Sure, we'd just do it on like the 29th or something like that. We'll figure it out. We'll make it work. We'll have one more podcast episode before the year ends, and we'll talk about
at some point
year ending Nenmatsu stuff. And cool. I heard this question from Cell Talks. He said maybe a quick question about Christmas plans. And is Christmas in Japan? Also, Christmas in Japan or just Japanese holidays would make great extra content lessons. I agree.
We have one in the old
archive. Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's got pictures of KFC and
we got to get that archive back, dude. Damn. Christmas plans. Yes. Well, not for Christmas actually, but for that,
you have the end of year
Nenmatsu. Yeah, we're going down to Kumamoto, like I just mentioned, to visit Chase family, and we're gonna go with all of them to the mountains in Oita, and we're going to stay in a ryokan and go in onsen and eat delicious food.
That sounds fun.
I'm looking forward to it.
I don't have anything like that planned.
Sasuga.
I'm sure that on like New Year's Day we'll go to see Oliver's family.
Yeah, like her brother and stuff is in the area, right?
No, I mean like her cousins and aunt and uncle. Her brother lives with her mom, so we see him.
Oh, really?
Pretty often.
Oh, I didn't know that. Nice. So everyone though, that's in Japan side of things.
All the family.
Yeah. No Korea this year. Unlucky.
Yeah, sad.
That's tragic.
For Christmas, I don't really think we have any plans other than to exchange some presents, and that's about
I
it.
mean, I'm pretty sure Christmas Day I'm gonna be working because it's really not a holiday.
Not in Japan, it's not.
Yeah, the
No.
25th. It's a Friday. Yeah, that I'm gonna be working on that day. 26th. Well, I think that's the day actually, the 26th, that we're going down to Kumamoto. Now that I think about it,
Oh yeah.
yeah. The company
When I
is.
first
Yep, sorry, go ahead.
first moved to Japan in 2012, 2013, that first year I thought Christmas was like so lonely because like no one around me seemed to be celebrating, and like I talked to my family and friends back home, and it's like everyone is together, and whereas now it's just been like that for so long, I don't really notice it anymore. But I was super bummed when I first moved here,
Hmm,
and I felt like I was missing out a lot on Christmas.
understandable. Yeah, Chie and I haven't really done anything for Christmas since we got married, like 5 years ago now, 4 years ago. So I haven't been doing anything for Christmas for like a long time. But New Year's,
Hmm.
we always do something like that the entire. So from now in my mind is now like I forget about Christmas other than like the fact that it's a holiday, so it's like culturally everywhere. But like, yeah, I think about New Year's now as like the actual holiday of the end of year kind of a thing, like that I'm gonna take time off or like spend time with family. So
Yeah. So I
I've
do still get
I've
kind of bummed that I'm missing all the
transitioned.
family gatherings back in the US. But if we were over there, they would be getting bummed that we're missing all the family gatherings on New Year's.
Yep, so happens.
We a couple of times we've actually timed it. So we had Christmas in the
You've
US
done
and then we
both.
flew to Japan and did New Year's in Japan.
That's smart.
We did that. I think we've done it twice now, I think.
Hmm.
We would do it regularly if, you know, it was easier to travel and not a lot of money and we didn't have a little baby. But
Yeah, you'll get there.
yeah, I mean, so we'll probably go back to that routine eventually.
Hmm.
I have to mention that, like, if you go to like KFC, there's a huge poster on the wall to pre-order your chicken for Christmas.
You got me kind of hyped. I kind of want the cri-
Yeah,
the chicken. I kind of want to go to
yeah.
KFC now.
I passed it with Ray, and I was like, "Hey, should we pre-order some chicken for Christmas?"
Which
Whereas,
is
like, when I first moved here, I thought it was so ridiculous.
what did she say?
I don't think she was very into it.
Oh, unlucky.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, she's and like Ga said, there's pre-orders all over the place for Christmas. Like all the cake shops have like pre-order your Christmas cake.
Mm. The
It's also like a couple holiday in Japan, so
Yep.
you get like Christmas cake for your significant other when you
Yeah.
go on a date or something.
There's like the white cakes and then the dark chocolate cakes that are very specific that you'll find everywhere. It's for Christmas cake. Um,
Cakes are so good in Japan.
uh, you know what else is
I
good
don't
in?
know why.
I know what else is really good in Japan. It's cheese.
Yeah, it's expensive though.
Is it?
The cheese that I like the most tends to be
Hmm.
expensive. Well, some of it is not expensive that I like,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can find expensive cheese too, but like the cheese I'm talking about is not expensive and it's like so good. I'm like, what? How? It's just better.
Yeah, some of it's really good.
Yeah, man.
There's like cheap cheese I get from the supermarket that I like that's not expensive.
Mm,
But if you go to like Caldi, they have, for example, imported French cheeses,
yeah.
and they're so
There's
good.
just
But
so many good cheeses.
it's like 600 yen for this little thing of cheese.
Uh, dude, now I want some cheese and some wine now.
Yeah.
Oh man, uh, that sounds like a vibe. I watched an '80s Japan KFC Christmas advert today, and it was hilarious. I imagine. Yeah, some of those adverts for KFC are top notch.
When I was a student, I remember.
Really glad I made it in time for the cheese discussion. Hell yeah.
Yeah, when I was a student, I remember only a few months after I first got to Japan, drinking beers with my friend next to like a, you know how in front of McDonald's they often have Ronald McDonald, like not a statue, it's like a plastic guy
Mm-hmm.
sitting on a bench or something.
Yeah.
They had a big one of those for Colonel Sanders in a Santa costume.
Oh.
And for some reason, I drank beers with my friend next to that Colonel Sanders like two or three times a year.
And you don't know why.
I don't know. It must have just been a convenient place to grab a beer or something.
That's funny. You just said costume, like costume.
Yeah. My friends, when I was growing up, made fun of me for saying costume.
Do you say it like that often? Do you always say it like that?
I always say costume. I don't know why. I don't know who taught me. Everyone else says costume, right?
Right. Well, that's the American English way to say it. Costume is like a British or a New Zealand way to say it.
Oh, is it? Maybe I got it from my dad. I don't know
Yeah.
who taught me to say costume, but I keep saying it after all these years.
Yeah, it's a real way to say it, just not in American English. Costume. Yep, I say it the way Nico does.
Okay.
See? Yep.
All right.
I
Vindication.
got you. So you must
Now,
have. That's so random. It must be like this one thing you picked up from your dad.
yeah.
Mm,
That is strange. Well, my mom pronounces some things like a QE because she's been around my dad so much. So
mm.
in that case, it makes sense.
Costume is also Japanese. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, maybe Japanese has played a part as well.
But you've been doing it longer than you've been learning Japanese.
Okay, so I get the British way also. So I feel like, yeah, we outnumber you Americans saying costume. So
Maybe you might be right. I don't have any problem with that. I just thought it was funny. Or humorous.
humorous. I was just telling Caleb before we joined this. I've heard a few people in podcasts the last few days say human instead of human. Like they don't pronounce the H. Human.
Human, yeah, yeah,
Which
human.
is so it must be a regional thing or something. These were American speakers, but I don't know where they're
I think
from.
it's East Coast. I think there's where
Must be
people don't. They say
somewhere over there.
humorous, human,
Humorous.
and huge. Like doesn't like the meme
Huge.
like Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump both say huge, like a
I don't
huge
know.
success. I feel like that's a thing. So and in that case, it's from a certain area of um New York. I think
Hmm.
that where that comes from. Saying humorous. Um, I don't know why I said it earlier. It just kind of came to me. Josh says you're saying it the proper British way for costume.
Thank you,
I'm pretty
Josh.
sure he's
I'm glad that you're on
from
my
England.
team.
Yeah,
If I were a Japanese person, I think I would try to learn the British
British English.
pronunciation of
Yeah,
English.
same. If I spoke English, I would try to learn the British.
If you spoke English,
Yeah, but I speak
do you?
American.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Got him.
You set me up for that one.
Yep. I'm sorry. Yeah, I want to learn proper English pronunciation of English, but it might be a hot second before we do that with NativShark. So we could do accent
Yeah.
training though. Like our technology would allow for it relatively easily.
Yeah. Well, this gets back to the whole thing of like how building better systems is going to make us better at teaching
Mm,
Japanese. Because the fact that we have to plan for that ahead of time means that we're going to build the accent tools
right,
for Japanese,
right.
which means that we're going to teach Japanese pronunciation better.
Like a couple months ago, Nico and I were talking about like, okay, when we're teaching English, what variant of English are we gonna teach? Like it's kind of like ridiculous to just teach American English. Like that doesn't make sense. So then we're like, okay, we want to teach the main, quote unquote main standard dialects. So you got like General American, you have I guess it's received pronunciation, although no one really speaks it, but when you're learning it internationally, that's kind of what you're taught. And then you've got I think it's called General Australian. I think it's the one. So like those three. But then even within those, it's like, there's so much variation. I don't know how
Yeah.
exactly we want to cover it, but I think as far as like teaching wise, we probably would have to stick with those three. But like, I would like to have audio recordings at least of like, there's Canadian English, and even depending where you are in Canada, you have a different accent, and then you've got like, I don't know, like 20 different dialects in the United States, and then in England you've got like another 20 different dialects of English, and then in Australia you've got like four, I think, main dialects, and there's also South African, and then within the continent of Africa, there's so many countries that speak English as a
Yeah,
first
English
language,
is a monster.
and then you've got India, which it's a first language, so there's Indian English.
Yeah. It's going
Hmm.
to be an interesting problem to solve for content production also, because
Yeah,
in the case of Japanese, for example, we have writers who are from a certain region, and we encourage them to use language from their region if it feels natural for a
yeah,
certain context.
right.
The problem is matching the voice actor to the region after the writer has written it.
Hmm.
Um, so it's going to be an interesting problem.
The real thing is too is like nobody does this right now. There's no company that does what we're talking about doing. And is that because it's actually not worth doing? Or is that because it's really difficult to do and no one has figured out how to do it yet? And so that's what we're solving.
Hmm.
Like I want to do all these things with teaching English and like actually properly doing diligence to the different ways that it's spoken across the world. But that's a significant time and cost and investment, right? Like, is it
Yeah.
going to be financially viable to do that? I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to examine that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like this whole thing of accent reduction, for example, is a pretty good example. Um, there are accent reduction teachers that are very good at teaching you to reduce your accent in English,
Mm-hmm.
face to face lessons, ideally in person. I think no one has ever taught it well outside of that context
Mm.
because it's really hard to do. Because if you watch a video of someone's mouth moving and you have like your diagrams of the tongue is here and
Yeah.
like explain it in text, like put your tongue on your like, on this part of your
On
palate
the
and
on the
oh,
bilabial ridge.
yeah. It's like okay, and like even if they have the image and even if I'm seeing a person do it with an x-ray of their mouth or something,
Yeah.
not helpful and it's so boring.
Mm.
And whereas when you're in a face-to-face lesson with someone and they're like, "Oh, you just move your tongue forward a little more like this, like this." No, 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 closer. Okay, yeah, that's better. Times 1,000.
Mm.
Um, and to answer Gia, yeah, there's a interesting book on this written by
Mm.
this woman. She asked, "Is there like an actor accent training businesses?" And yes, there are. There's an interesting book I have that I showed Caleb a couple months ago, written by a woman who trains people for that purpose. Like she'll train a British actor to speak with an American accent because he's
In a
in
roll.
a TV drama that requires an American accent. And a good example of this is the guy in the Daredevil TV show.
Another great
He was her
example
he was her
is
he was her student. That's what I mean. He like took the
so
classes
was
and learned to sound like an American.
what's his name? The guy who played Spider-Man in the most recent ones. What's his name?
Yeah, that guy,
Holland.
Tom Holland,
Tom Holland. Yeah. He's British and had to be and I think he was one of her students as well actually.
maybe.
Um but also the one that he did, the movie that he was in most recently, where he had a specific region of the South as his accent. Like,
Yeah,
that was pretty nutty. He did a pretty good job, actually. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but not only that, because that was like more than just accent training. That was like dialect training too, because he also had to
hmm
use words that he would never use.
yeah. So it gets into a whole thing. Well, I mean, if you're reading a script, but
Fair.
uh, so yeah, if we can make it fit into the
Tom
platform
Holland,
without
yeah.
an absurd amount of resources being spent, then like I guess we'll end up doing it. And if we realize like it's not going to work, then we can point students to methods that do work outside
Yeah,
of the platform. I think
that's true.
because it goes back to this issue of what is core studies in a way.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily consider that to be core studies.
right? Because almost any accent or pronunciation training,
Is not.
other than what makes you understandable when you talk,
Mm-hmm.
is not core.
That's correct.
It's ego at that point. You just want to feel good about how you sound.
Yeah. Okay, on
And
that note,
I'm the same. Like, I really want to sound
yeah.
natural when I speak Japanese. Like, I study it and I practice it, but it's not actually that important. It's sort of important, especially in Japanese, because if you have really bad pronunciation, let's say it's good enough for people to understand you, but it's still not that good. People treat you like you don't understand Japanese, even if. So that's a problem. Whereas, like, if you're studying English, people don't care if you have an accent; they talk to you like they always do.
Yeah. I mean, that does
But
depend on
yeah,
where you are in the country, but
it's a
and in
balance.
what country. But I get what you're saying. Um, the the contrary side of that is if you have very good pronunciation, but you don't actually speak Japanese very well, then you end up in situations where people get confused, and then you're
They
frustrated.
think you're really good. Yeah.
Yeah, that happens too. And then so that's a bit of a bummer as well. So the solution is just get good. I'm talking
Yeah.
to myself, by the way. I'm not talking to anyone else. This is my problem.
Yeah, one of the huge personal milestones that students can look forward to, and this relates back to having good pronunciation, is the day when a Japanese person asks you if you're half Japanese.
If you grew up in Japan.
Yeah, or if you grew
Yeah.
up in Japan. I've only been asked it twice by strangers, um, and it felt pretty cool.
Last week or 2 weeks ago, I was with a friend. He flew down from Tokyo. We went out to get musunabe, and we were talking to the when we were like buying, like checking out or whatever, like paying for the bill. She was intrigued for whatever reason about. So she's like asking us questions, and she asked if I had lived in Japan my whole life.
Hey, there you go.
There you go. I said I did not. I used to live in the United States, and that's where I met my friend actually, because he was studying abroad when we met in university, and we're still friends to this day. How about that?
A big part of that is mannerisms too in Japan.
That's huge, right? If you have
Yeah,
the correct, quote unquote, correct Japanese mannerisms to go along with decent pronunciation, oof, you're doing good as
yeah.
far as
You could you could
blending.
make someone think that you're Japanese without talking if you have their mannerisms.
It goes a long way to having a great,
Yeah.
if your goal to when you're in Japan is to have like the most seamless experience possible, then learning the mannerisms in addition to high accent correctness is the way to go. Now, if you're in Japan and you don't, this isn't really a goal, you're not really a concern of yours, and you don't really mind, then don't worry about it. It's like, it's not required. Is what I'm trying to get at. You don't have to do that. It just depends on what you want, and as a person, what the experience you want to
Yeah,
have.
I picked up a lot of the mannerisms organically, but for the most part, I haven't put much thought into them. Whereas I know that you were pretty intentional in like getting your mannerisms right,
Hmm.
so I would imagine that is having a big influence.
Yeah, I have put quite a amount of effort into that, like having Shea teach me, or um, asking people like her family, or just observing a lot, like watching things a lot. Um, like when I'm with other foreigners, um, and they have not put as much effort into mannerisms, then like you can tell, right? You can feel it. You know
Yeah,
what
you
I'm
do
saying?
feel, yeah.
Yeah. It's like and it's not, again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm trying to like make that clear. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'm not like trying to shit on anybody. I'm just saying there's a difference, and you can tell um that it's there.
You'll tell, especially when your friends come to visit you from another country, and you're their tour guide for a few days, and you're like, "Hey, man, don't do
Hey man, don't, yeah.
that."
When I have had friends come visit, um usually I will it explain to them in advance, like be prepared for XYZ, and then we'll do this, that, and not the other thing. Because my friends, I've got pretty decent friends, like the ones who come visit me, like they're all like pretty conscientious people who want to, you know, have a good experience and stuff like that. I haven't had friends that have come and who don't give a fuck. So I haven't had that
Yeah.
experience, but I've seen it. Like I've watched
I never
people.
gave my friends the primer.
Yeah, of course.
Here's my apartment on Google Maps. It's like,
Just find your way.
I had friends come visit, and then we were supposed to we went to Kyoto to like stay there, and I was like in charge of everything, and I didn't book a hotel in advance at all.
Of
So
course.
like, where are we gonna stay? I was like, I don't know, let's go find a place, and I just found a random hotel, and it turned out we were super lucky. It was like the last two rooms available, and because there was some huge festival going on, and I was thinking, hey, maybe I should have planned ahead.
That is the way in which to draw the contrast between your and my personalities.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. When friends come to visit Japan, Nico will be like, "Oh, we'll find a place." When my friends come to visit Japan, I'm like, "Here's what we're gonna do.
Here's your guide to having.
I will make you have a fantastic
Japan.
experience. Yes, you will love it." Like I don't
I had a great time.
Of course, I don't pre-plan. I don't want to sound like a planning freak. I'm definitely not. Like I don't pre-plan everything. I just like help people. I don't know, feel really comfortable, I guess, and both whether that's like the people in the country or also the people visiting. And I know that some people, people will be worried if there wasn't some sort of a plan. So like I'll be like, okay, we're gonna stay here. But I don't usually like go like. There's some people who like have like an itinerary. Like I'm not about that. Like itineraries kind of stress me out. Don't have me be places at a specific time, please. On this note though of like accent and mannerisms training, things like that, like these aren't core, but I mean that's where extra credit's supposed to happen, like reinforcement material, or maybe as like a side, I don't know, like a specialization or something, like a side path, like especially accent training, like that's not related to language learning, like that could be a path in and of itself, like just a small one.
Yeah.
Like you already speak
it would
English.
be good to have it just so we could point out like the reason it's not in core studies.
Yeah. Okay, well, we went for another 40 minutes after we said we were going to end. So let's end it here. All right.
Cool.
I
Thank you, everyone.
definitely did not update our conversation topic because I forgot. So, whoops. I'll just put a smile face here. Yeah, thanks everyone. We will not be here next week, but we will be here on like probably
Before
the 29th.
The end of the year.
Yeah. We'll just like message in Discord and Twitter. Also, these are coming to audio platforms sometime soon. Is what I have been told. So, if that's to look forward to. All right. Thanks everyone. Take care. I'm gonna end stream right here.
Yeah.
Peace. Soon TM. Don't you know it? All right, take care.